Hey guys, welcome to Tone Talk with Marc Huzansky and Dave Friedman. How's everybody doing? Dave, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I think a little sick, but pretty good.
Oh, you managed to catch that, unfortunately?
Well, I was trying to catch it before I went to Detroit, and then I kind of held it off for a while, and then when I got back, it was kind of like, yeah, here you go.
That sucks. Sorry to hear that. Well, tonight we have a legendary guy, a legendary amp builder, and a guy that you know for a long time, Bruce Egnater. Bruce, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Really,
I'm honored to be here.
Oh, we're honored to have you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dave and I have been talking. Yeah, we've been talking about having you on the show for a long time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I lived long enough to do it, so that's excellent.
And in this day and age, lately, yeah.
Oh, sad.
Apparently, people like to just drop dead lately.
Oh,
Well, I'm hanging on, so.
thank God. Let's knock on wood for that.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's Friday night, and I see we already have 12 viewers, and it's already growing quick. It takes a couple minutes. People get the notifications and stuff, and I want to thank you, Bruce, also for sharing the link and getting it out to people, because we just broke 1,000 subscribers, so that's pretty cool.
Cool.
Dave?
I kind of put a little something on my Facebook today. Come on, subscribe.
Oh, good. Yeah, that helped. It helped. Good to hear.
I'm not even seeing the video up yet. Delayed.
No?
No.
Oh, interesting. All right. Yeah, I haven't put up the link myself, actually. So, Dave and Bruce, you guys go way back, I imagine. Do you want to tell the story of how you guys met and all that stuff?
You or me, Dave?
You probably don't even remember.
No, I actually do. Yeah. Well,
do?
why don't you start? I'll see if anything's if I remember it differently.
Okay. Well, the first thing that I don't even know how I knew to go to you, but the first thing that ever I had done by you, I do believe, was at your old Natex shop, and it was a Laney Pro Tube 50 that you added a gain stage to. The Pro Tube 50s were just like a JCM 800.
Oh,
and
okay.
You kind of added a little other tube stage in front of it, kind of.
All right. Did I work on a Marshall PA head at my house for you?
I don't know if it was at your house, but yes, you did.
I thought that was the first thing. Anyway.
No. It goes back further than that, when I was even younger.
Oh, see.
And
okay.
and that was the Laney Pro Tube 50, which, in the end, I got rid of it. I didn't like it in the end, but
yeah. Well,
but
yeah.
hey, yes, and then you had worked on Plexi PA head for me. Yep, and that might have been an Arnold Williams, though.
Oh God. So you're going to remember all these things I don't even remember.
Yeah. Well, there was a Plexi PA head you worked on for me. There, I think I had you copy a mod from another mod into one. Maybe that was the PA head. I don't know. And because yeah. So anyway, it goes back to there, and then so you were doing all these mods and stuff that sounded great. I think the first one I remember hearing a great one you did, like some JCM 800 and Arnold Williams or something that you had that was really cool sounding. Yeah, really a long time ago.
Yeah, no, this was like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
This wasn't like, this was a really long time ago.
Yeah, this would have been, had to, oh, God. Mid to early 80s.
Yeah, Dave was a kid, and I was just barely not a kid, and we were all starting out, and that's it. Now, Dave lived in Detroit. I don't know if everybody knows that Dave grew up in Detroit, and eventually moved out to California and did what he does.
Yeah.
So this was all the time then you were in Detroit, Dave, and
this was all the time in Detroit. So then I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but And then later, I had started doing rigs and stuff for people, and in walks Randy Jacobs, and who's a guitar player that was in Was Not Was, from Detroit also, and he had a modified Soldano preamp.
Yeah, that's right.
That Bruce had changed the middle channel mostly, I think, on. And it sounded really great, you know. So then I called Bruce because he remembered me from before. I called him and go, we got to make this preamp. And so if I'm remembering it right, we became partners on the early preamp.
That was the IE4.
IE4. Yep. In fact, I have one right here that I want to send you.
Well, you know where I am.
I know.
Now, IE stands for Ian Egnater, my son. That's what IE. If there's any other reason, any other suspicion what it is, it's my son's initials, and that's all it is. So.
And why the 4?
4 channels. 4 complete channels. In fact, wait a minute.
Yeah, let's see it.
They're really cool, actually.
Wow.
Is that a red one?
Yeah, I'm going to click on that.
Oh, it's a silver one. The first ones were red. We made I don't know, 20 of them in red.
This is the stainless front and back one.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So what year are we talking? This
one is dated. This one's dated 95, but when it first started, it was like 92 or 3, I think.
Oh yeah, it was a few years before that.
Yeah,
before that one in your hand. So yeah. That was the first real thing that I had actually made with Dave, and Dave tweaked and I designed, and it came out pretty cool. Now that thing, oddly enough, we sold a whole bunch of those. I don't know what a whole bunch is in Nashville. It turned out the third channel was perfect for slide guitar. They all went nuts over the third channel for slide guitar. So we sold a whole heck of a lot in Nashville, as well as some other places. So that was pretty cool. Actually, I've been thinking about reissuing that, but I don't know. I'll see if I get the time.
That's cool.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool. I saw you post about that. It was the idea behind the preamp originally was it's a clean Fendery kind of thing, a cranked up super reverb meets deluxe sort of deal. Then your hot rodded plexi-ish Marshall, plexi to hot rodded in the third channel, and then beyond that for the fourth channel. And that was the basis of it all, and that's where I started driving Bruce crazy. But we sold them.
Yeah, and then there was now I think you were at it was right around your making music years too.
Yes, that started it, and then later I had left making music.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that was the beginnings with Dave.
And then we made a head after that.
Yeah, that was the TOL.
Yep.
Head. And that was it.
And that was it. And then you went to work for Rocktron.
Right. Okay.
Oh yeah. So why don't you take us back, Bruce, if you can? Like, how did you get into building amps, and how did you get into it?
Oh, I never think about that anymore. The whole thing actually started. There used to be a music store in Detroit called Gus Zoppi, Zoppi Music. Kind of a legendary place. I used to go in there when I was a kid or a teenager and hang around. Everybody would just hang out at Zoppi's Music. In fact, they were the first Marshall dealer in the United States. There was no distribution, so they actually called England and bought them direct for a while. So they were pretty forward-thinking bunch of people. And but it was owned by this old guy, Gus Zoppi, and he made accordions. They'd been open since the 50s, and he made accordions and had recitals, and then his son got involved, Gus Jr., and turned it into like the coolest rock and roll music store in the world. This was 40 years ago, but I was working there. I got a job as a salesman when I was probably 20 years old because I was still in college, and there was nobody good around town to do repairs. And that's what I was going to school for, was electronics. And one day Gus says to me, he goes, "Hey, you know something about amps and stuff?" I said, "Well, I'm learning." He goes, "You want to fix stuff for us?" I was like, "Okay." So I took one of their little teaching rooms and bought a bunch of test equipment and an oscilloscope and all that, and just went for it and wrecked some customers' things here and there. But, you know, we worked it out. But that's where I actually started doing things. I always fooled around. I was always the guy in the band who could fix something by default, which was cool because I got to play in the good bands because I knew how to fix the gear. So that worked out good. So they'd keep me. I was always the worst guy in the band, but that's okay. I didn't own the PA, so that wasn't the reason for being there. But so I did that, worked at Gutsoppy Music for a number of years, and then some other things. There used to be another local company called Professional Audio Systems that made PA power amps, solid state stuff for PAs. PAS. Yep. And I got it. It was one guy, and he was hand building solid state power amps. Yeah, wow. Floyd James. I got a job there after Zappy's as his only employee, and that guy did everything by hand. The circuit boards, etched the circuit boards by hand, and again, this was 40 years ago. He bent the metal pieces. He drilled all the holes. We did everything by hand. So I learned so many skills from him. I learned about metal. I learned about anodizing. I learned all that stuff. And a lot of it was with Floyd because he did it all by hand. So it's cool. He was kind of like that. It's hard to learn that kind of stuff on your own. So working for him was great. And then I don't know. I don't remember what other dozen jobs I've had after that. But moved on, and all the time I'm still making new stuff and trying to. And this must have been all before Dave. Yeah, it was before we had met.
Arnold, no. When you had your own store, that was after Arnold Williams or before Arnold Williams?
That
was before.
I don't know. I've had 3 different shops come and go, just by choice, not because they failed. But you just move on. But I worked at some of the local music stores, and just kept doing it. And over the years, over the 40 or 45 years, I've gone and said, this is hard. I'm going to go get a real job, and that would last 6 months because while I've got the real job, I'm continuing to build amps at home, and they're like, "Dude, you're going to have to choose." It's like, okay, I choose to go home. So that was it. I mean, it's just, I've always been here. I've always lived in Detroit. Detroit used to be a just thriving rock and roll band scene. I mean, we had Bob Seger and Iggy Stooge, and all those people were here, and Ted Nugent, and they were just local bands. Which was another cool thing I wanted to mention. Working at Zappy's, any day you walked in there would be those guys, all the local musicians, because they were just local guys like Ted Nugent, and all of them were just hanging around. And but when the touring bands came to town, they would also go to Zappy's because they needed supplies or whatever. And I remember I walked in there one day, and there was Keith Emerson was talking to, I can't even remember who it was. One of the other guy, like the guitar player in Genesis. They're in the store, and they're just like normal people, hanging around just like the rest of us. So it was a pretty cool life back then. Not that it's still not cool, but it was it was all starting out, and Detroit was a major place. You know, I mean, Kiss and Jay Giles recorded their records here. You know, so.
Oh yeah. No, Rock City.
Yeah,
exactly.
That was for real. It was a super place to be for music.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty cool.
Now, are we talking 70s around that time, 80s? Same.
Yeah. Well, whenever like I said, I'm not good with years because there's a lot of them in between. But yeah, I mean, I graduated high school in 71.
Okay.
I think Dave was born by then.
I was born by then. I was 3.
Okay.
So was I.
this would be mid 80s when all, you know, mid to late 80s when everything was really, really booming. And there were a million local bands.
Oh yeah.
And I became, you know, opened a little shop, and all of a sudden I became the repair guy for Detroit. So it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Rocktron before. When did you work for Rocktron?
In there somewhere.
Had to be 96, 7-ish starting maybe.
Yeah, mid 90s probably.
Well, you were still making the amps, so it had to be after 95. So
yeah, we were making the TOL and stuff.
Yeah, so
I guess I should have figured this out before we got on the radio.
96, 97 probably, I think.
Yeah, but what had happened, I had my shop, and we were building the amps and all that in Ferndale, Michigan, actually. And Rocktron came to me because I knew guys that worked there, and I knew the owners and all that. And they said, hey, we want to make some tube amps, and we don't know how. So we want you to help us. So I actually drew a schematic for an amp, a power amp called the Velocity Valve, because that's when rack stuff was happening. So I I drew a schematic for a tube power amp, and they took it from there. I think Bill Blatter was the primary design guy on that. So that was their first tube amp that they made. And then that went well. And one day they said, hey, we want to do some more stuff. I said, well, hey, you want to buy my company? And they said, oh, okay. So I sold Egnater to them. And then maybe a year and a half, 2 years later, they go out of business and GHS buys it. There's a whole history. I have a long history. So GHS buys Rocktron. And they all moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And along with it goes Egnater. Not me, but the company. Mm-hmm. And so I called him and I said, hey, Bob, what are you going to do with Egnater? He goes, I don't know, probably nothing. I said, can I have it back? And he said, well, let me find out. So he goes, talks to the owner. His name is Russ. Real nice guy. Knew him too. I kind of know everybody, it turns out. So
at this point, it's not Tom Schultz. Tom Schultz has nothing to do with it.
No. This is Rocktron, not Rockman.
Oh,
this is the IntelliFX. What else did they have? That was the Hush. They invented the Hush.
Right.
That was Rocktron.
See, I saw somebody mention Tom Schultz. It confused me. Gotcha.
No, yeah, everybody confuses that one. So anyway, I make a long story short. Bob said, well, Russ doesn't want to just give it back because he just paid a lot of money for the whole big company. He goes, why don't you design something for us and then we'll give it back to you. So I designed the Rocktron Vendetta. Big 4-channel tube head. They're actually pretty cool. They made 100 of them. I got my company back and everybody was happy. So that's where that went. After that, I don't remember. What did I do after that?
Well, that's cool. I mean, have you worked with, different artists over the years? Different people?
Yeah, I've always worked with not so much the rock star guy. Mm-hmm. It was more the guitar players in those bands. So I never did anything for Van Halen or any of those super duper guys but I would do the stuff for the other guys in the band. That's just how I ended up doing all that. Some of them used our gear. I mean, Steve Vai used one of our amps for a couple of years.
Yep. I did his rig then. Yep.
Yeah, but he, I never did anything else for him. Dave usually was the guy that worked with them, and I just sat here at home and did stuff. So, but yeah, I recall, I don't have it with me, but there was a list of artists. I don't know, there must have been 50 well-known people on there that all used stuff. We never gave anything away, so they all went into making music or whatever and bought them. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, Dave could probably name more of them than I can, but
Keith Howland with Chicago.
It was the studio guys.
Davey Johnston that was with Elton John. A bunch of studio guys. They all had the preamps, like every single one of them. Tim Pierce, everyone.
Carl Verheyen, I remember he was.
Carl Verheyen had one. He still has one. John Shanks had a head. Oliver Lieber had a head.
Melissa Etheridge
had a combo. Dave Barry, that was with Janet Jackson and Katie Lang and stuff, had all sorts of stuff from us, combos and preamps and everything. There's more. I just can't think of it right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. But, I've never been in the thick of it. I'm always out here in where it's quiet in the Midwest, and Dave always deals with the madness of that world out there.
Yeah, that's my problem.
That's Dave's thing. So, I have a nice quiet life here in Detroit. So.
Right.
Yeah,
that's cool. So how long did it take you to because clearly back then, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have anything like that. It was all about, someone's calling me. Unfortunately. Call me right now. My friend in Alaska. Like, what's he thinking? Like, he knows I'm doing this show right now. It's like my one friend who doesn't have Facebook. He's calling me. Yeah. So, ruined my train of thought there. So I was going to ask, back then you had to read books, you had to really, have a mentor, to really teach you back then. Was it a slow process? Was it fast learning for you? Making these mods and tweaks and everything like that. Just curious.
It was the slowest thing you could ever imagine, I guess.
Absolutely.
You didn't look on the internet for schematics. You used to write to companies and just request a schematic. And some of them would send it, some of them wouldn't. I now have a file cabinet with about 1,000 strange schematics you can't replace for stuff that nobody ever heard of. Every time I saw a new amp, every company, every advertisement, I would write for a schematic. So I ended up with quite a collection. But that's how I learned, was really reading schematics. There were a few books that were helpful. I remember Jack Dar was the author, this blue book that I had. But that's what you had, were books and tube manuals. And the idea was to just look at what everybody else was doing and think you could do it better. So you did, and you tried. I remember the very first amp I actually made, before all the other stuff we were talking about. Boogie had just come out with that dual mode. You could switch the lead gain and master in and out, sort of, pseudo 2-channel thing. And I saw that, and it's like, well, that's cool, but I was playing at the time, and I said, well, I need tone controls on both channels. And I was just a dumb teenager, and I thought, well, heck, I can make that. So I just made an amp, and it actually worked. In fact, a few of them are still around, and I see them once in a while, which is kind of scary. But so I made that, and other people. That's when everything was really busy in Detroit, and other bands started to see them. My customers saw these things, and it's like, well, we want one. So I made like, I don't know, there's probably 20 of them out there somewhere. Half of them, I'm sure, are in the, in a landfill somewhere. It didn't have a name. Well, the company was Natech at the time. Bruce Egnater, and I took the middle letters out and called it Natech. So that was just the repair shop, and I made some amps, and local guys started using them. So that was really the first actual thing I made from, kind of like from my own brain, and not just a modification of somebody else's stuff.
Right.
So that was cool.
Yeah, I remember seeing those amps around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it a head or a combo?
I remember combos.
Yeah. Well, then, actually, there were combo. Yeah, there were heads. It was just a different box. But yeah, it was a little 112 combo or a head. In fact, we sold a few of those through Arno Williams at the time. So yeah, but they were cool. By today's standards, they're kind of scary. But I have a couple of guys that still have them and still like them, and actually still use them. So I guess they couldn't have been that bad.
Wow, that's cool though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff. You know what? We've got over 50 people watching right now, just so you know.
Oh.
Good crowd. Maybe I'll go jump in and say hi to some folks. Is that cool?
Yeah.
By the way, I want to say first off to Timothy Pierce, not Tim Pierce. We always have to clarify that. But Timothy Pierce, he sent me a hat and a T-shirt, so I want to thank him. That was very nice of you. You didn't have to do that, but I thank you very much for doing that. And thanks, buddy. So we've got a bunch of people. Chlorine Bacon Skin. First off, I love that name.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I think they said that was a name from Scarface, from whatever reason. I have no idea what that.
I don't know. I've never heard it.
Me either. Tom Platts says, "Hey, Dave, Marc, and Bruce." Kelly B, hello, gents. Is that your phone, Dave?
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Heath Brinker, he says, stoked about the guest tonight. Go Cubs.
Okay. They're Chicago, but that's fine,
All right. Is Detroit playing? At all? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Could be.
Yeah. Gear Addict says, hello, everyone. Tactical 6 string. Looks like you got Bruce's name wrong. Yes, I did. I will fix that. I missed a letter there when I was in my rush of spelling your name on the thing. My bad.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else we got? Is everyone else? No, I actually was really happy with the GitCon stuff. I don't know. Did you guys see some of those GitCon commercials or videos that were on YouTube?
No.
Dave?
Yeah, I've seen some of the videos and stuff. Yeah, and I was talking to Pete Thorne about his experience there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Positive?
Yeah, no, he loved it. He said it was great.
Yeah, cool. I thought the videos that were coming out of it were fun, and they looked.
Yeah, there's a lot more content from every single one of the different people that were there that are going to be coming out in their channels over the next few weeks. I mean, there's a lot more content. I mean,
yeah, I would imagine so. So just so you know, Bruce, what we're talking about is there was, I think, through Warwick and Framus. Is that who it is? Framus?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Warwick and Framus and Henning Pauly.
They put together a YouTube. It got all the different channels that do music and gear and talk and those types of things and reviews. A lot of these people together I believe in Germany at the Warwick factory. And they had I think a whole week of getting together and doing jams and different content. And Pete Thorne was there, Phil X was there, and a bunch of the different channels were there. Phil McKnight. I don't know if you know any of these people, but Henning Pauly, and etc. I thought it was really good. Based on what I saw. I think it would have been great to be there as well. Maybe one day we'll go if we get invited. So,
cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So if someone said that they would were sick of it, but I thought it was really good.
Well, if you're sick of it now, there's still going to be a lot more videos coming out. So,
and I believe with Heath Brinker, I thought Get Calm was kind of cool. So, someone says, "Is sound objective? Isn't sound objective?" I think sound is objective or subjective, as maybe you would say.
Oh yeah,
yeah, totally.
There's no right or wrong.
Completely.
Yeah, it's funny. We at a point a number of years ago, we had a little shop in the back of a music store where the teachers were sitting out in the other room, and most of them were like jazz and really great players, but they weren't rock and roll guys. And we were back there. I don't know what amp we were testing. I think it might have been the Armageddon or something like that. And it sounded great. And then we walked out, and they're staring at me like, you might want to look at, getting a day job here, because to them it was John Deere farm machinery. So, yeah, no, there is no right or wrong. It's whatever's good is good. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yep. Well, it's good if it's good to you and it sounds good, But then again, if it sounds good to you and then everybody's telling you it sounds like shit, you might want to rethink that.
Yeah, you could revisit that, but
At least that's my feeling. But
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I do. It is subjective, and it's everybody's tone in their ear. But there are some rules, or at least some things that you can go by to give you some good tone, and that's for sure.
Yeah, within reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dave Marshall popped in.
Yes, hi Dave, and
Hi, Dave.
yes, Dave, you did help tweak on the original preamp. That's what he said in there.
Oh, okay.
Don't forget me. I was there helping.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave. Marshall.
Let's see. Father Zappi was the bomb, Motley Jew says.
Okay.
And it's not spelled like Jew. So otherwise I'd be removing that.
Okay.
Let's see. Awesome. Want to hear everything about the modular story, beginning, middle, present, Randall to Synergy. Humming Pumpkin says.
Okay.
Want to tell us?
Well, we could do that now. Yeah. Well, actually, I came up with this idea like long ago, and I even made a couple of systems, prototype systems. And what I did was made a bunch of little, and this was just an idea I had, so I made it. It wasn't for anybody in particular. But I had a bunch of little single space half rack metal boxes. So what I did was made a different sounding preamp. It was all tube stuff. And I made a different sounding preamp in each one of them and had, 5 or 6 different preamps. One was a Fender, one was a Marshall, one was a Vox, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But they were all individual units, and they went into a rack with this separate, sort of like a loop switcher thing before loop switchers existed, and you could select which preamp you wanted through this separate rack mount thing, and it all went into a rack, and I made this thing. It's like, wow, this is kind of cool. And it got they all had the power from the other units and all that. Mm-hmm. And again, a couple of the popular local bands saw it and said, we need those. So I made a bunch of them, and then that was it. That was like many years ago. And then all the stuff we've talked about took place, and I was working at Rocktron, and it was kind of near the end. We knew Rocktron was going to go under, and something was going to happen there. And my friend Frank was the CFO at Rocktron. And he's a guitar player. I've known him forever. And he said, hey, well, what are you going to do when we're done here? I said, I don't know, Pinky. What do you want to do? And he said, what was that modular thing you did long years ago? And I so we talked about it. He goes, you want to do something with that? I said, okay. So he had the money and I had the brain, I guess. And so we came up with really the modular stuff that you guys know about with the plug-in things. And that was, what, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
So we did that. And it's funny, when we first started doing that, it was just an idea. We said, well, let's go for it and see what happens. And we actually, the first NAMM show we did, Frank and I did the first NAMM show with that stuff. We had the rack with 4 modules in it. We had a Fender, 2 Marshalls, and a Vox. And we went to Nashville NAMM, and we had our little booth. In fact, it was right next to Line 6 when they had the very first thing they came out with that looked like a spaceship that sounded cool that nobody knew how to. Yeah, no, this was an amp. What is an AX?
Oh.
AX2 or something. It sounded cool, but nobody could figure out how to work it. So I think they kind of rethought what they were doing. But we were right next to them. So we have this little booth. We have the rack with the preamp in it, 2 112 cabinets with vintage 30s, a couple of chairs and a guitar. And we didn't have a power amp, so I threw a power amp together like the week before in a metal box with a couple of 6L6s, and we threw it behind the rack. So that's all we had in the booth. So while we're there, and this is Nashville, so this is where the Players were, and they came to one of the local stores. His name was Dave Wilkerson, and he owned Techstar, which was a music store that was in the giant rehearsal place. What's that called? Soundcheck. The place that had the flood and wrecked everybody's stuff in Nashville. That was Soundcheck. It's a big, huge rehearsal place where all the big touring bands would do their full dress rehearsals before the tours. Dave had a store in there, so he was connected to every player in town. And he came over, he's like, what do you got there? And we showed him. He's like, okay, yeah. He goes, I'll tell you what. And he listened to the Vox module, because everybody had Vox amps. That was the sound you had to have. And he said, okay, I'm going to bring over a couple of guys. If they like it, you're in. If they don't like it, you're screwed. So we're like, well, all right, whatever, bring them over. I think it was like Brent Mason and a couple other guys before any of them were anybody, And they all came over, and it's like, oh, okay, so this is going to replace my, 1961 Vox EL84 Bulldog speaker amp, huh? I said, I don't know. So they plugged it in, and they start playing, and the look on their face was like, holy crap, this is impossible. So they all took turns playing it, and they said, this is the most amazing thing ever. They said, this won't replace my amp, but I would tour with this, and I would take this out with me, and then I can leave my amp at home, and I'm perfectly happy. It's close enough to my vintage Vox that I would use it. So that's where it started, which was really cool. That was a good, to instantly get in with the Nashville crowd was kind of cool. So we did that. And at the same show, that's right. That's where guys from Randall came over, and they saw it and said, wow, this is great. And then they left, and then they kept coming back, and then they'd bring other people, and they came back like 10 times during the show. And eventually they said, this is the coolest thing we've ever seen. We want to do something with you. How do we hook up with you? And so we worked out a deal with them, and we continued to make the Egnater handmade modular stuff in Detroit. And at the same time, they had their own version. We licensed it to them, the technology. We have a patent on that plug-in modular concept. So we had a 10-year deal with them. And when it was, after 10 years, they said, you want to do this again? And Randall had sold the company to somebody else and all that kind of stuff. We're like, nah, we don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. So we finished with Randall. And then, so now we still have the patent. And then I went to work for, when we did the Egnater stuff with a company called ETI. That's who's out in California that does all the Egnater amps that you see and all the mass-produced stuff that's all made in China, and it's cool. But That's like the other world.
Mhm.
We hooked up with them for all that for a number of years. And now they also said, hey, what about this modular thing? And that's, I don't know, how long has it been, Dave? 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years of development at least, right?
Yeah.
But it's now shipping, so.
Yeah. So, we quit making them here for a few years, and then we started with the new Synergy line, and it's the modular stuff, next generation, sort of.
Yeah.
So that's the history
updated.
of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
updated for sure.
All new stuff. And the cool thing now was that, when we were doing it, we were just mimicking different amps, different companies. And then there are a number of people like Rob at Jaded Faith and a few other people that started modifying the modules, which I thought was pretty cool. So it kept the whole world alive. Well, now what we've done to take it a step further, we've contacted all my friends in the business, like Dave and Mike Soldano and Peter Diesel. Everybody knows everybody in this business. We're all friends. We're all competitors, but in the end, we're all friends at the same time, and we trade things.
Which is very cool. I mean, that doesn't happen often, and it's good because, I mean, it's nice to hear. That's I think that's part of the musician, people who are musicians and being nice to each other and stuff. I like to hear it. It's nice to hear.
Yeah, we're kind of all in the same band, So what we've done is talked to all the guys like that and said, hey, you want to do a module? And years ago they weren't interested, but now the world's a different place and everybody wanted in on it. So now we do have, Dave's got a number of modules. We have a couple that I did that are just the Synergy brand. But we do have we have an SLO module that Mike Soldano gave us the circuit for, and the way this all works is they draw the schematic or tell me what they want, and I'm the guy that turns it into the circuit, into the physical module, but the actual artistry of it is the real guys. Like Dave gives me a schematic of exactly what he wants, and I just turn it into a module for him. But we do have Diesel, we have Morgan. God, how many more are there? I can't even remember. There's like 8 or 9 different companies. There's probably, how many modules are there?
Metropolis? I think Metropolis too.
Yeah, Metropolis
George
has one, and
George did a module.
There's my modules, and there's some Synergy branded modules, and I know Stevie Fryette is working on some stuff for it, for under both Fryette and Sound City.
Right.
That's good.
I think Angle is coming aboard now too.
Okay. Yeah.
At least that's what I hear.
Yeah. So that's what the new version of it is. Actually, the real people are doing modules for the system. So it's a kind of pretty exciting thing, actually. So to answer the question, that's the history of the modular.
That's cool. No, it's great. I mean, I don't think, I mean, there's some people out there who might not be familiar with it,
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty that are not familiar with it.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, you can go to, I think, is it synergy.com now, or synergyamps.com?
Yeah.
Hell, I'm not sure exactly.
It's probably Synergy Amps.
Yeah.
And hopefully
synergyamps.com.
I was going to ask you, Bruce, if you want to talk about your amp building courses that you have.
Oh, okay. Well, that's another exciting thing that we do. Actually, I've been doing that for 10 years. I do everything in 10-year increments.
So you guys better hurry up. He might stop.
Yeah, you never know. But it's a great thing. We do have a website for that. I did the website myself, but it's cool. It's ampbuildingclass.com. And what you do is sign up for this class. It's a 2-day thing we do on Saturday and Sunday. And the first day you actually build a hot rodded really great sounding boutique level Marshall amp. You build it yourself with our guidance, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We supply everything. We even feed them, and they don't stay at my house. They have to get their own hotel and car and stuff. But so first day we build it. The second day is even cooler. I mean, that's cool. Everybody gets to build an amp, but you can buy kits. You can go to other classes and probably build an amp. I don't think the amps they're usually like a Mojo kit, a Champ or a Princeton or a Deluxe, where this is actually kind of like a for real custom hot rodded amp.
Nice.
But the second day is schooling day. And what we do is tape blow up the schematics really big, and I tape them to the wall, real old school. And we do a classroom situation all day long and try and teach, everything I know in 6 hours. So we just which clearly doesn't work that way, but, anybody that comes and does this walks out knowing a heck of a lot more than when they came in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go off on your own and do stuff. I mean, we've had people that, a lot of beginners that had never done anything, never soldered a thing. One particular guy comes to mind is Mark Day from, he's now with Axe Effects.
Yeah, he used to be.
He did a crazy thing. He was in the first class we did long ago, probably more than 10 years. And he lived way up in Canada somewhere. I think it was about a 10-hour drive. And he drove down here, and he did the class, and then he left about, 8, 9 o'clock that night. And the next morning, I had never met him. He was just another guy in the class. Real smart, though. You could tell this guy was real smart, but he didn't know anything about amps. Absolutely nothing. I don't know if he ever even soldered. And by the next morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning, he already had videos on YouTube. And it's like, wait a minute, you just left here. How did you do that? He was now he had been awake all day building an amp.
Mm-hmm.
He said he was so geeked up by this whole experience that he drove straight through. He couldn't sleep. He goes, I was so wide awake and geeked up, I just got my car and drove. And he drove all the way home, and then he stayed up and made a bunch of videos. They're on that website. So, people that, and now that he kind of credits us a little bit for getting him into the music business. He was already a great guitar player, but he wasn't involved with the gear at all. And then he worked for Dave for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And now he works for Axe Effects. So it's, we can take credit for getting some people started in their career, whether it's, a good thing or not is up to them. But,
that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, so it's a great thing. Our most hardest thing is promoting stuff nowadays. That's what we find. Every time we do a class, we only do them 2 or 3 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we do, I go out on Facebook and do all the usual stuff. And we get countless people that go, what is this? I've never heard of this. And it's like, well, we've been doing it for 10 years. And so it's difficult to promote things nowadays. It used to be easier to put ads in magazines and newspapers. And, now with the internet, you'd think it would be real easy. Everybody would know. And it's different. So promotion is always an interesting thing, but it's fun. And it's just a great experience for everybody that's ever done it. I've never had anybody walk out of there and go, this wasn't cool.
No, I mean, if I were closer, I would love to do it. And I think anybody who has the opportunity to do it should definitely hit you up. How
closer?
What's that?
You're not that far away
from Michigan.
Yeah, you can get on you fly to Boston. You can do it.
I could do it eventually. One of these days, I'd love to do it.
You can just get on I-75 and get off in Detroit, and you're there. So.
I'd love to do it. Trust me. I just got to find the time. But I think people should. There are a lot of people out there who might not know about this. So, how do they get in touch with you, Bruce, to do it?
If they go to the website, they can contact me through that. There's a contact page. I have a phone number. It's 248-541-9100.
Okay.
Is the shop phone, but probably through the website or just my personal email, begnater@AOL. So again, old school. I was the first guy on the internet, and I still have AOL.
Well, if any of you guys, if you're interested in doing the class, you really should do it. I think it's a cool thing. I stopped by his class for the first time ever when I was in Detroit this last weekend and on Saturday, and I think it's really cool. You're going to get a cool amp when it's done, and you're going to build it yourself. So,
that's amazing. So you can actually build the whole thing in one day. That's the. Well,
we pre-build portions of it. We wire the tube sockets. We do a lot of the mechanical assembly that. I don't know, kind of don't consider screwing transformers into a chassis a real learning experience. So we just do kind of the icky stuff. So the chassis is pretty much ready, but they build the circuit board, which is kind of a cool thing because a lot of people don't get to build a circuit board. In fact, most people don't get to build a circuit board. So it's kind of a cool thing, and you develop some soldering skills. Even if you've never done it before, by the time you leave there, you'll be efficient at soldering. So
yeah, I think it was really cool. And the fact of the matter is too, you're doing the class and you're going to get something out of it too. It's not just you're going to get a cool amp when you're done, and it's I think a really a cool amp. I mean, like with cool features, and it's
Yeah, I've seen some of them that have come. Now, is the amp different every time, Bruce, or you keep the schematic the same for each class?
Actually, now we've sort of refined it to the point where we've been doing the same one for probably a couple of years. There is a 20-watt and 50-watt version, but they're identical except for the transformers and the tubes. So the 20-watt one uses a pair of 6 V6s, and the 50-watt uses a pair of EL34s. And then the other, the different transformers for different power, but they're identical. Everybody's building the exact same thing, just with some different parts like that. And as far as cost, it's $1,500 for the 20-watt, $1,650 for the 50-watt, in case anybody was wondering. So
yeah, that's good.
And it is the coolest thing we do, out of all the stuff I've ever done. And it's, it's kind of corny, but I feel like I'm contributing to perpetuating the art. Building tube amps will eventually go away, but we get a surprising number of young guys doing this. We've had a couple of girls, but in particular, we have a lot of young guys, which is encouraging. It's not just a bunch of old farts.
With the other guy in the class, that one that was there when we were there was 20, early 20s?
22 years old.
22.
And this was like the coolest thing ever. So, it's not dead yet, and we're contributing to try and keep people exposed to it, and it's still out there, and it's still great.
I think it's a great thing. Share the knowledge,
It's an art. It's an art form to make this stuff. It's at least the way I see it. I kind of equate it to. I was just thinking about it today. I recently for my birthday I got an Apple Watch, right? So I've been wearing that for probably about a week or so, and but I've always been a watch guy, and I've always worn like an actual mechanical watch. And I was thinking even just recently about that lost art of people making, like real timepieces, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Versus just looking down at this digital thing on my wrist that doesn't require anything but some circuitry, Well,
everything's like that, like there's a lost arts everywhere. I mean, there's hell, the way they build a house now there's a lost art from the old days. You know, there was some craftsmanship that went back into the old houses that you can't even find someone to do it today. They don't know. You know, find a plaster guy that actually uses plaster. You know, and you know, there might still be a couple around, but I mean, you know, it's kind of a lost art.
Yeah, all of that is. I mean, some things are okay that they get lost, but you know, a lot of stuff you don't want to see it go away. So it's cool.
Cooking.
Yeah.
You know, and I think back, maybe it's just the perception when I think about, you know, I always get teased by my kids, but I always remind them, I used to tell them about my grandmother's meals. I'm like, oh, my grandmother's meals were the best. And they're like, yeah, sure they were. But, you know, I'm like, no, they really were. And, but, you know, like even that is a lost art. So, yeah, but that's great that you pass it down and, you know, you're giving people the opportunity to learn it, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, you said about watches. It's interesting. My daughter works for a company in downtown Detroit called Shinola.
Yeah,
and they make watches. They hand build watches. They're $400 to $3,000, and this is just a booming business. And they're mechanical watches.
Watches.
Yeah,
That's good to hear.
Yeah, don't they also do turntables too, or something?
They now make. They actually started out making bicycles.
Yeah,
handmade high-end bicycles, and then it turned into watches, and now there's leather goods. You know, they hand make a bunch of leather stuff, and they also make. Yeah, they make a turntable.
Yeah. So what's like the mission statement? That's a real broad set of products there.
Jeez.
I mean, I think it's bringing. I think what they were. Well, don't quote me on this, but I think what they were trying to do is it's all in Detroit, right? So it's bringing back American jobs with American industry in really what once was the capital of industry, and you know, making products here again with pride and quality and, you know, old world craftsmanship, I think is essentially their thing.
Yeah,
oh, that's cool. That's good.
In fact, they're doing so well, they're building a hotel. There's going to be a Shinola hotel here. That's how well the company's doing. So
that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Yeah, most of the automatic or mechanical watches that you hear are typically Swiss made, right? So
yeah.
So to have something built in America, that's pretty cool too.
So that's cool.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right.
Oh, one thing I was reminded, two things actually. So Dave, happening this weekend in Brooklyn, which is my hometown, by the way, just so you know, which I wish I was there, is the Effects Pedal and Gear Expo, Fear the Riff.
Yep. Yes, it is.
So what's going on there? So you guys, that's it's New York's first annual. You guys are there? Friedman?
We're there. One of our sales reps for that territory is there with some of our products. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do know he's there, and it's a show, and it's one of the first thing, and I think it's Sam Ash is involved with it, if I'm not mistaken, to some extent, and I don't know. I think it's going to be cool.
Anybody in New York wants to check it out, October 7th, which is tomorrow, I guess, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Brooklyn is my hometown. That's where I was born. So, yeah.
Cool.
I'm a Brooklyn boy. So check it out, www.feartheriff.com, if you guys want to check that out. I saw something interesting, Dave. I wanted to bring this up. I saw Neil Sean posted on Twitter, I think yesterday, or maybe it was Facebook, that he's looking for one of his original Sean guitars that were built by Grover Jackson.
Oh, yeah? A specific one?
Yeah, he says, anyone have one of these in white in excellent condition they want to sell? I'm interested. And he has a picture of it.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
I think Dave knows somebody that could make one for him.
Sure.
I do.
And it still won't have a Floyd on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that one? No, actually, the guitar that he has pictured here doesn't have a Floyd as well. So I guess that was an inside joke. And then the other thing, there was a question here from Jinsey Parker Sparks sent me a private message asking Dave and certainly Bruce, so curious of your opinions as well about Greg Germino's amps in North Carolina. They wanted to know your opinion, so I said I would ask.
I don't really know Greg at all, but I know that he makes a good Marshall, classic vintage style amplifier. I mean, he puts a lot of care into it, and I know the amps are well made, and I think they're all made by him, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they are as well.
I think it's a small little operation. So
I think I met him once. He was a really nice guy, but I don't know anything about his amps, but they look nice. So.
Yeah, I mean, anybody interested? I know a guy who is endorsed by Germino amps, Jacob Derups, young guitarist. I think he has his 50-watt Plexi, non-master volume. It sounds great. He was actually using just recently used the Variac on it. Sounds awesome. He does a lot of Van Halen stuff and everything. So
cool.
Yeah. So check that out. Let's see. I'm going to go back to. We've got a question here from Mateus Azevedo. He says, Dave Friedman, I'm looking at a low wattage Friedman head and looking at the Runt 20 for its versatility. How's the clean breakup tones, especially using direct out?
Well, the clean will break up. I mean, when you drive the power section enough for it to break up, meaning you have a volume knob basically at that point and a presence knob on the amp. And the more you crank it up, the more grit you'll get. It's not a lot of grit, but it will get crunch up and sound cool. With the direct out, yeah, you can crank it.
Cool. I have the Run 20. I can tell you that it sounds great, and exactly what you just said, Dave. I mean, you can run it direct out and crank it if you want, or you can keep the cleans real nice and glassy and completely clean if you want to. So. Rowcamp 56 has a question for you, Dave. Also, have you tried to run the Dirty Shirley pedal into a power amp?
Yes, I have. I had to think about that for a minute because it's still so new. Yeah, and it can sound cool. It can sound totally cool into a totally clean power section. Sure.
All right, cool. And he also wrote, Rowcamp 56 wrote, Egnater great amps with a big exclamation point.
Okay.
Cousin Vinny says, hey, Mark, how's it going, buddy? And we have a question here for you, Bruce, from Timothy Pierce. He says, how did you decide to start the amp class?
Well, that's one of those funny stories, too. A decade ago, I believe I was sitting in the bathroom reading a magazine, and I was looking at stuff, and I said to myself, I wonder if we could teach people how to build amps. So I went into the other room, and I asked my wife, I said, hey, do you think we could teach people to build amps? And she goes, I don't know, I guess. And that's it. That's the whole story.
That's a hysterical story.
Oh, well, that's how it really happened. And actually what we did the very first class, we bought Mojo kits, but I modified them. So you were actually building a modified Mojo 50-watt Marshall kit. And then we eventually just got away from that because you're modifying it. I wanted it to be, from the ground up. So I redesigned it over time, a number of times. So we have refined it. But yeah, I mean, that's, a lot of stuff is like that. You just get some kooky idea one day, and I'm kind of one of those people that just goes for it. What's the worst that can happen? Nobody will die, I hope, So that's it. There's nothing really super cool about that other than we went for it.
Well,
and that's what other people should do. That's what we're trying to do here.
There you go.
Is, you got an idea, just do it. Go for it. What could happen? You waste some time, maybe. So
That's awesome. That's great that you did. Speaking of anyone dying, has anyone ever electrocuted themselves in doing this? I had to ask. I
haven't gotten killed yet. Sure, you've been shocked lots of times, and it's not like a cool thing, and it's nothing to brag about. It's because you were foolish and
well,
and
don't
didn't
you
pay
find?
attention.
Yeah, don't you find? I always say this. I go, the longer you do it, the more careless you get about it.
Oh, sure.
I can change that part while the amp's on all the way, no problem.
Or you forget to turn it off or whatever.
Bam! Whoops.
And I've gotten a few really good ones. The key, which none of us do, but the key is to keep one of your hands in your pocket so that. Imagine you've got your right hand in the amp and you're going to touch the high voltage. It would be really cool if if volts like glowed blue or something or had a color and you could see it, but you can't. So if you don't know where it is, it could be anywhere. So you can have high voltage in an amp, which is anywhere from 400 to 800 volts. It can be bad. If you have your other hand on the metal chassis, which is ground, when you touch your hand on the hot spot, the electricity flows through your arms and through your heart to get, the path of least resistance. So, that's bad when you do that. I have I read some stuff about guitar players who had been electrocuted playing live, like in concerts. There were a couple of them.
How about Pete Townsend?
Gosh, I can't.
I heard of Pete Townsend. I could swear I read about that. But maybe
he didn't get killed, but there are people who got electrocuted.
No, he didn't get killed, but he electrocuted, but he didn't get killed. Yeah.
But there are a couple of bands from long ago where guitar players got electrocuted,
and they
touching
died.
and they died.
Well,
yeah.
That was also when a lot of the gear didn't have grounds and things.
Yeah. And you touched your guitar and a microphone and it would be bad. So things are a little safer now if people follow the rules, which most don't. But if you do, you're better off.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Well, I know I had one of my experiences. I was trying to bias one of my amps, and then suddenly I had to call Dave. Like, my tube is glowing super red and it's about to explode.
Turn it off.
Turn it off. Exactly.
You know where the on-off switch is?
Yeah. That's what I did immediately. I shut it off, and I was like, okay, I know I did something wrong. And then Dave wrote me back. I told him that the guide pin was broken off one of the tubes, and I put it in wrong. That's what happened.
Oh, I've done that.
Yeah. That happens.
Yeah.
That happens.
I
got a good story that Bruce could tell, maybe.
Good.
What about the soldering iron story with Randy Jacobs?
Oh, see, I forget about these things till other people bring them up. Randy, that Dave mentioned earlier, who lives out there now. When he lived here, I used to actually sometimes go to his house to work on his gear. He didn't live far away. And I had my wife and I think it was Ian. He was probably 3 or 4 years old. I think it was my son.
Mm-hmm.
He's 30 now. That's why I can't remember exactly when it was. But I was at his house, and I had a soldering iron sitting in a little holder on top of his amps. And I was looking down, and I reached up with my left hand, or my right hand, to pick up the soldering iron. And I picked it up, and I looked, and I had picked up the wrong end. So the hot soldering iron is laying across the inside of my fingers now. And my kid's sitting there, and it was like, oh shit, this isn't going to be good. So I just kind of carefully, I set it back down. I was about to pass out, but I set the soldering iron back down, and Randy's standing there with his jaw on the floor, and Terry, my wife, is like, and they're watching this, and I didn't want to start throwing it. I didn't want to throw the thing, and I didn't want to start swearing in front of my kid. Right. So Randy goes, "Doesn't that hurt?" I said, "Yeah, it hurts more than you could ever possibly imagine." And But yeah, that was the start. And so it gets worse. So this happens, and I survived, and I wrapped them up and put some stuff on them, and it was like that for a week or so. And I kind of little self-medication. I took care of it. It's not a big deal, except that after it started to heal, I couldn't straighten my fingers out. It had healed with my fingers bent, and I couldn't straighten them out. I couldn't even push them to open them. It's like, crap, this isn't going to work. So I went to the doctor, and he looks at it. He goes, how long has it been like this? I said, well, I did it about a week ago. He goes, well, let me look at it and see. And he took my fingers, and he just bent them back. And I heard the stuff, the skin or whatever, I heard it actually rip inside my fingers. He bent the fingers, and I heard it go. And he goes, okay, now. What had happened, it healed from the inside. So anyway, it was just a stupid thing. So yeah, you got to be careful. It wasn't permanent. They work just fine now. And
I only see 3 there. Hang on.
You only see 3.
Yeah. So yeah, that was just one of many stupid things that we do in life.
Yeah, mistakes happen.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. You got to be careful. Be careful. Hey, look what happened to Tony Iommi, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Let's see. We had Francisco Guardian from Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So say hi to him.
Hi. Francisco. Francisco took the class when we did it. We did 2 of them at Sweetwater a few years ago, and he actually came from Costa Rica.
Oh, nice.
To do the amp class. So we've been friends ever since. He brought me coffee, then he sent me coffee, and like the good stuff,
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Good.
By the way, Randall Aiken is on here and says hi. Bruce.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, Randall.
And he says the Jack Dar book was great. I still have that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. That was the one I can't remember the name of the book, but he only wrote one. So if, not even aspiring, anybody that does guitar amps should just have that book. I think it's called the Guitar Amplifier Handbook or something. And his name is Jack Dar, Darr, and you have to have that book or you're not a real amp guy. Yeah.
Super cool. I'll have to download it or buy it. Yeah, that's cool. Dave Marshall said, I toured with Slaughter with the Red Egnater 4-channel preamp. Loved it.
Cool.
Yep.
Todd Flowers, hello from Bradenton, Florida. Spot MFD, Miami in the house. Matthew Harrison, where is the amp class? Detroit? ? Yes, that's where it's at. That's where it's at. Right?
Yeah, it's actually Berkeley, Michigan. So anybody that's afraid to come to Detroit, we're not actually in the pit of the city. We're in the north suburb.
Well, the pit of the city now wouldn't be afraid to come to.
No, Detroit's cool, but we are in a little bit north of Detroit, 10 minutes.
Yeah,
really nice little area.
Yeah. We're on 12 Mile, and Detroit stops at 8 Mile. And there actually is an 8 Mile road, for real. That Eminem was from,
Oh, okay. That's what I see. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, Eminem's from here too. So.
Right. So is Kid Rock, right?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah. Well,
Let's see. We got Justin Mabe from Utah says hi. And Chad Spittle says, love the way Bruce voices amps. Dave too.
Thank you.
And Francisco says, Bruce's amp building seminars are an amazing experience.
Excellent.
Super cool.
Well,
Thomas Earl says, hello from Orange County.
Okay.
And Chlorine Bacon Skin, Prince song. Yes, I'm sorry. What the hell was I thinking with it's a Prince song. Okay. I would have never gotten that. I think it's better in a Scarface movie. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dave, I finally got a BE 100. Good evening, gentlemen. Ryan Criswell says.
Cool.
Very good. Congratulations, man. So did I. I just got a BE 100 right there.
I don't have one. I need one, but I don't have one.
There you go. Dave, get on
here,
it.
Randall Aiken's got one. He goes, has Bruce or Dave ever had a large electrolytic capacitor explode in their face? I'm asking from experience. It makes you look like Daffy Duck with a beak blown off.
Wow.
I've never had that explode in my face, but I have had one explode on the bench.
Yeah, no, I've never been injured by one.
Randy, you got the brunt of it, I guess.
Yes.
Not good. So Francisco asks, and I'd love to hear this. He says, "Tell us about the Stevie Ray Vaughan Dumble story."
Oh
yeah, I forgot about that.
I that comes up every once in a while, so I actually have it written in. I wrote it out, and it's on my amp building class website. Yeah. But it's years ago, long ago. I worked at Arnold Williams Music, was another super cool music store in Detroit here. God, it must have been early '80s again. 71, yeah, probably early '80s. And I got a call, just a service call, to repair some stuff at the Royal Oak Theater, it's still here. It's a cool little music theater. Probably holds, maybe 800 people, something like that.
No, it's more than that, I think.
Is it? That's bigger than that.
I think it's more than a few thousand people.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. I haven't been there for a long. Now it's a bar, so I haven't been there for a while. But, and I got a call to go do this service call. And the guy says, yeah, it's for Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I knew the name and I had heard the music, but he wasn't big yet. He was just a guy. And the guitar tech calls and he says, all right, he's got this pile of, well, I said, well, what do you got? I need to know what to bring. You can't just walk in without, you need parts and tubes, and just like any TV repairman, you got to bring your stuff. And so I asked him, what do you got? He said, well, we got a bunch of Fender stuff, which is self-explanatory, and some other things. And he says, and we got this Dumble steel string singer. I said, okay, no problem. And I thought, I have no idea what that is. So I had Howard Dumble, H. Alexander, his name used to be Howard Dumble. And I had his phone number from some other time I actually talked for Bob's. No, it wasn't Bob Seger. Somebody else had an amp that I called him and talked to him. He was a perfectly normal, nice guy on the phone. And so I called the number and he answers the phone. I said, Mr. Dumble, my name's Bruce Egnater. I'm going to work on Stevie Ray Vaughan's Steel String Singer. Can you tell me something about it? And he says, sure. And he starts rambling all this technical stuff, all amp jargon, and circuits and all that. And it's like, oh, okay, great. Thanks a lot. And I got off the phone. It's like, okay, well, he just described an Ampeg SVT, like to a T. It was, he described the circuit of an Ampeg SVT using alternate words. And so I took all the stuff to repair an SVT, not knowing what I was walking into. Gets better, though. So I walk in to the theater, and I did actually never met Stevie Ray Vaughan. But I walk in, and there is the stuff's all set up on stage. The guitar tech takes me up there, and there's a pile, literally a pile of Fender amps, just a wall. I think there were 7 or 8 random combo amps, a super, just a bunch of stuff all in this big pile of stuff, and kind of teetering on the corner was this Fender Vibra Tone. Yeah. It's like a Fender Leslie, but it's a little box. Looks like kind of like a combo amp. So that's sort of teetering on the corner there. And here's this steel string singer thing sitting off to the side on a table. And I said, I said, all right, well, tell me what's going on. He goes, well, okay, this Dumble thing. He says, it just doesn't sound right, which makes it kind of hard to fix when you don't know what it was supposed to sound like in the first place, because I never heard of it. Right. So I was like, all right, well, no problem. I said, I talked to Howard. I called to Howard Dumble. I talked to him, and he told me, all about it, so I know what to do. He goes, well, what do you mean you talked to Howard Dumble? How did you do that? I said, well, I dialed the phone, and I dialed, and he answered the phone. And he flips out. I won't use the words he used, but he starts screaming and yelling. He's like, that MF. He says, we paid him 2 years ago for a couple of amps, and he says he didn't deliver them, and he won't even answer the phone when Stevie Ray Vaughan calls. He goes, and you call him, and he answers the phone. God damn, and he like takes off. He goes, I'm going to take care of this right now, and he left. He left me standing there. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'll fix the stuff. And so I go to work on this Steel String Singer. And not to say anything bad about Howard Dumble, because he makes like
amazing
crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But I go to work on this amp, and it has 6 6550 power tubes in the bottom. And there's like an amp chassis, amp metal box down in the bottom, and then there's a preamp on top, kind of like an SVT. I don't know if you've ever looked in the back of an SVT, but it's 2 pieces. There's a power amp chassis that sits in the bottom, and then the preamp with the tubes is on the top. And I look, and it's like, oh, that's an SVT. Not like an SVT. It's an SVT power amp out of an SVT head. Ampeg transformers, everything. And it's in this box, and then he had his own preamp section, his special Dumble preamp thing that he does, but it was an SVT power amp. And it's like, this is like really weird. So, and then I found out more about Dumble later on, and it's like, oh, there's all sorts of stories, but it sounds like, I mean, I've been to some of the Dumble Facebook pages where all the real guys that really know all about Dumble amps, and they study them, and they document the history, and apparently nobody knows anything about this one, because it was just a thing. It was like he made one. I don't know whose it was. They didn't make. I don't know if he made it for him, for Stevie Ray Vaughan, or what. So anyway, I fixed that thing because it was easy to fix, because it was an Ampeg SVT.
What was wrong with it? Do you remember what was wrong with it?
Tubes, resistors. There's kind of in the old days, you could almost know what's wrong with an SVT before you even looked at it. There were like standard failures, and if it wasn't that was surprising. So you do power tubes, and there are these little 22 ohm resistors in the tubes, and so it was kind of standard repair on an SVT. So I fixed it, and it works fine. And it was, it sounded like a 300 watt twin. It was pretty cool. And then, so the guy comes back now, and he's okay. I can't remember his name. He was a real nice guy, but I can't remember his name. Right. He comes back. I said, are we okay now? He goes, yeah. He goes, everything's handled. We took care of it. I don't know what that meant, but they took care of the problem with the amps. So I said, all right. I said, well, the Dumble's fixed. What do you want to do now? He says, well, this one right here. And he's got the guitar. He's got Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar on. And he said, this amp right here. And he points at this one that's in the middle of the pile. And it was a Fender Concert, which is sort of like a Super Reverb with one 15-inch speaker. It was kind of an obscure model, but it was cool. And he says, I said, all right. And he's going to show me. He goes, he just bought this on the road and threw it into the pile and took something else out. That's what he used to do. And in front of this pile of amps is a little metal box like you'd buy at Radio Shack with a bunch of 1/4-inch jacks in it. And those little plastic cords that used to come with the wah-wahs.
Yeah.
Just like guitar cords that were made out of, they were like plastic almost with the molded ends. So this box is hanging in front of this pile of amps, this wall of amps, all plugged into this little box, all at the same time. And on the floor is the yellow overdrive pedal, whichever one that was, and a wah-wah. And that's the whole setup. There's no buffers. There's nothing fancy. It's like 8 amps all hooked up together, all at the same time. And he takes me to the Super, he says, or this concert amp, and he says, all right, let me show you what's wrong. And he takes his hand and he goes across and turns all the knobs full up. And then he plugs in the guitar, and I look, and every amp has all the knobs full up. So he plugs into the guitar, and he puts on the neck pickup, and he's got his left hand not touching the neck, and he whacks the strings, and he goes, how do you think that sounds? I said, not really great. You can just imagine what it sounded like.
Mm.
And he
massively
goes,
loud, first of all.
Yeah, and it just kind of went, it was horrible.
Right.
Not because it was broken, but just it was horrible.
Yeah, and also had a big 15 speaker or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, what do you think? What do you think? I said, well, it's got a lot of bass. He goes, there's something you can do about it? So I reached over and I turned the bass knob down, and he waxed the guitar, and he goes, that's it. I said, okay, I guess we're done then. He goes, well, there's a problem. This was like hilarious. He goes, there's a problem. He says, Stevie wants it to sound like this, but he wants to see the knobs full up. I said, okay. And, I'll just get a screwdriver and we'll just move the knob. And he said, nope. He says, he'll find out and he'll really be pissed that we tricked him. He said, I need you to go inside and actually do something to it. So when the bass is on full, it's like it's only on 3. So I actually went into the amp and stuck a resistor in there or whatever I did, so that
change the cap
it
or
did
whatever.
what it was. But the whole story was like, this was the magic of Stevie Ray Vaughan. You hear about all these amps and all this amazing gear and all this stuff. And it was a big pile of crap that he buys on the road, and he throws one in and takes one out, and it's got a bunch of Radio Shack cords and a box with a bunch of jacks, and he plugs in, and well, he sounds like Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Right.
Because he plays like that. I mean, I banged on it. It's like, well, gee, I don't sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan. But for him to be able to do that and control all that, and it was just absurdly loud. The whole band was absurdly loud at the time.
Certainly good.
Yeah, but then because it's funny because people ask me, now these Dumble guys are like, well, tell me, did you get pictures of the amp? It's like, no, it's just an amp, and it was broken. I fixed it. So I don't, had I known this was going to be a, like some historical thing, I would have taken some pictures, but I didn't. We hadn't invented.
Back then, no one had camera phones back then also. So
yeah, it wasn't so easy.
We didn't have cell phones, so I didn't snap a few pictures of anything. Right. So that's my Stevie Ray Vaughan story. So
well, that's super cool. Gotta love that.
Yeah,
and a Dumble story too. So
yeah.
Did you end up talking to Dumble any other times after that?
No, those were the only 2 times. I met him once. I must have been at a NAMM show, I'm sure. Mm. Nice guy. Everybody says he's all weird and stuff. I don't know. The few times I talked to him, he was fine. He was a nice guy. Do you ever meet him, Dave?
Stevie? No, who? Wait, who?
Dumble.
Yes, no, many times.
Oh, okay.
Many times. Yeah, I love him. He's great.
Yeah.
He was a very cool guy.
Cool.
We've got a question here from Moran Nathan. Says, Bruce, any changes to the class amp for future classes? Redesign? ? No plans for now until we, exhaust the people that don't want to make this one anymore. So no, I don't have any plan for any major redesigns on them. We actually have been thinking about doing a simpler one, but nothing's happened yet. And when I say thinking about, that means, a lifetime ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I might get to it.
Gotcha. We have a question here from Chad Spittle. Will Synergy be at Sweetwater? I guess he means for sale at Sweetwater?
That is not in stone yet, but possibly, yes.
Okay, synergyamps.com, right? Check that out.
Mm-hmm.
So someone asked, Matt Haramis, how does the power amp system work with the Synergy system?
Like just how idea how this whole a guitar amp is just made out of basically three parts. You have a power amp, you have a power supply, which really isn't a major part of the sound. It is, but it isn't. And then you have a preamp. So all we invented was a way to change the preamp. So we sort of like have a patent on an edge connector. In other words, the power amp is the same for all the amps. Yeah, I mean, the thought would be, well, how can you have a Vox module with a Vox amp and you got 6L6 power tubes or EL34s or whatever is in the Synergy head or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, well, we don't claim to exactly duplicate every nuance of every product. It's really darn close. We fooled the guys in Nashville years ago. Mm-hmm. So that is one thing. The power amp is constant for all the preamps. Now, in this type of system, being all the gain, all the tone, everything is generated in the preamp, really. The power amp is not, I won't say not as important a part, but it's not as large a percentage of the sound as the preamps are. Mm-hmm. And the preamps are kind of tweaked to work with that power amp. Like when Dave does his modules, and if he does a module for a particular amp, but the power amp is different in the Synergy stuff, subtly different.
Yeah, but the same token, like the Synergy power amp, I mean, I've A/B'd to power sections of my amps, which are totally different tubes, and you can dial them in to sound the same.
Yeah.
You totally can. It's not.
They're very conventional. Like, this is all high-tech stuff. Not really. It's in the 50-watt head. It's a Marshall power amp. Mm-hmm. Basically, I mean, it's, there's nothing terribly different or advanced about the power amp design. So we've kept it pure and kept it as traditional as we could because we're trying to mimic traditional amps with different preamps. So. Right. If that answered the question, I hope.
No, I think that makes sense, and hopefully they understand. We have a question from Todd Smith. Bruce, where did you get the idea for the Tweaker series of amps?
Well, see, there's a story to everything. I had this idea before we made that amp, that you would make a little amp just like that, but the grill claw, the piece of front grill on it would be removable. And behind that grill would be little slots that you would plug these little things that I called tweakards. And you'd plug them in and you'd have an assortment of these little tweakard things, and you would plug them in and out in different combinations so you could change the sound of the amp. And this was a really cool idea from an engineering standpoint. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys, in fact, it was John Ewing that used to work with us. He now works for PRS. But he started talking. He said, well, how are we going to market this? How do you display this in a store? You got 20 of these they look like little camera memory cards, like those little itty bitty things. Mm-hmm. And he said, aren't there just like resistors and capacitors and stuff on those little cards? I said, yeah. He goes, because, this is in Guitar Center. What are you going to do? Have a bag of those things hanging there and people will plug them in to try them? He says, that's not going to work from a sales standpoint. And he said, but if it's just parts, just resistors and capacitors, he goes, couldn't you just put those on little switches? And it was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So we got rid of the cards and just put those things on little switches. So now you got all these little switches that are just switching parts for different sounds. When you switch the voicing switch in the tone controls, you're actually switching from Fender to Marshall to Vox tone controls, and you can pick the one you want. And there's a bunch of other switches. So the original concept is not what the final product was, which is very often the case. But it came out kind of cool, and I'm glad we didn't do that tweakard thing because that would have been a disaster.
Yeah, that sounds like that would have been, yeah.
Well, that's an engineering design instead of a player design, you know.
Well, yeah,
Right, well,
they'd be all gone at Guitar Center. They'd just be all missing.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
same day.
Wouldn't be in there. They have a hard enough time with foot switches.
Yeah, no, that stuff wouldn't. It just couldn't work. So, that was the concept for the tweaker.
Well, that's cool. And they're still selling those. I mean, you see them all over the place.
Yeah.
Dave, need a naked Synergy model. Thanks, Mark, for getting that request out there.
Well, it's a little hard. The power section of that amp is a kind of a must-have in order to make the sound like that amp. So I think in a module it would sort of be very hard to do.
So the answer is no.
So sorry.
Now there are already a variety of Friedman modules to choose from. You know, if you can't find what you're looking for in one of the others, then you're never going to find it.
What's the difference of the naked anyway? I'm not familiar with it.
The naked came about is I developed an amp with Billy Howardell from A Perfect Circle, and he really liked a nailer amplifier, but he wanted like 100 watt, and so I modified his Marshall to kind of have that same sort of front end, and with some of the Marshall DNA still left in it, and some of the power amp tweaks that were in the nailer also, and that sort of became. Then I made him a couple custom amps based off that Marshall that he loved that I did for him, and those amps have appeared on all the records that he's ever done. I made a couple customs for him, and then I made a small little run of them by hand way back in the, 2000-ish, I think. But yeah, all by hand. Not too many are around. And then later I was making it for a little while under the Friedman brand name. We had it out for a little bit. But it wasn't a huge seller for us. So it's a very specific sound. And it wasn't a huge seller, so we just kind of discontinued it over time. Gotcha. I'd still do one custom for someone if they want it or stuff. It's not a big deal.
Cool. Matthew Harrison has a question for you, Bruce. He wants to know, when are the classes?
Well, the next one happens to be November 18th and 19th. We don't have like a schedule for the year or anything. We kind of do it when we see we'll have time and we can give enough notice. Typically, we try to announce them a couple months ahead of time. But so right now, the only one that's actually scheduled is November 18th, like next month. And then I don't know if we'll do any more this year. We're in Michigan, so we got to be careful with the weather. We don't do them during the winter because that would suck if it snowed and we were having a class and nobody could get here.
Right.
So we do them in the spring and the fall, and then nobody wants to come in the summer because it's summer and nobody wants to come in the summer. So this may be the last one for this year, and then we'll start up again in, March, April, whenever the weather clears up again.
Cool. That sounds good. Cheddar Kung Pao says, wow, I'm in Michigan. I'm definitely going to do this. Going to have to wait a bit, though, since I just bought a very pricey PRS.
Okay.
That's cool, though. Maybe next class. Check it out.
We'll keep doing them.
And, guys, I'll go ahead and post a link in the description of the video later of where you can find info on the class and everything like that. So I'll post that information later for everybody. And let's see. How are we doing on time, guys? We're going on an hour and 45 minutes. You guys okay?
Oh, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Someone wants to know, have you ever watched the Guitarologist channel? The guy builds amps from nothing. You give him anything with speakers, and he builds it. Never heard of it.
No, never heard of it.
I haven't seen one, but I'll definitely look at that one.
Yeah, and someone else says Guitarologist is probably my favorite YouTube channel. Huh? I'll check it out.
Okay.
Check it out.
What does Bruce think that? Why does Bruce think that building tube amps will go away? I think it's on the rise. Thirsty Flipside says. Good question.
Well, I think tubes will become an issue. We'll probably go to war with every country that makes the tubes at some point. They all, yeah. Well, I mean, it's more like the supply of tubes could become an issue more than anything. Mm-hmm. They all come from Russia and China and some other countries that I can't pronounce. So it's more the tube supply that I would be referring to. But we've been saying that for 50 years, and
that's true.
They still make them. It's such you think, well, there's a million guitar amps, but in relation to other mass-produced products like tennis shoes and skis, things that are just general commodities that people buy, tubes are a really specialized thing, and they're not made in huge quantities. I mean, when they make 100,000 tubes, it sounds like a lot, but they probably make 100,000 Nike tennis shoes a week. So it's really a very small market as far as a manufacturer goes. But I don't know, they keep doing it, so we're good with that. There's demand, but it's nothing like other.
Back in the days when tubes were at their peak of being used, I think it was a lot of military, right? I mean, it was and also in every TV and radio and.
Oh yeah, decades ago that they hadn't invented transistors, so it was tubes, and everything in the world worked on tubes, and a lot of stuff still does, besides guitar amps or home stereo or.
And the tubes actually worked then.
Yeah. I don't know what the whole story with that, if the guys that knew are now gone, the real tube engineers that knew, but it's really a struggle to get good tubes, but apparently it's also a struggle for the manufacturers to make good tubes. And I don't know what that is. I mean, we've dealt, Dave and I, everybody's dealt with this for years. And, we would buy whatever Ruby tubes from Tom McNeil, and they were all we had microphonic issues. I said, well, Tom, the Sovtech 12AX7WA is not microphonic. Can't they just copy that? And he explained to me, he said, well, in China, which is where the tubes are made, he said, it's an ongoing battle and it's uphill. He says, we find an issue and we fix that one issue, but they cause another one. He said it's as if you can't just fix all the problems at one time in one design. So I think that's just how it is, which is good for them because we have to buy a lot more because we throw away half of them. But
aren't they eating some of that cost or no?
Sometimes somebody is somewhere. Probably the seller as opposed to the manufacturer. I don't know how that whole supply chain thing works.
Well, I'm sure that they have a certain failure rate that they expect, but
about literally out of 20 tubes, you're gonna have 6 failures or something. That's not like that's not great.
Yeah, you can have 30 to 40% failures on some, and it's it appears to be batch related, meaning this week they're good and next week they're horrible. This is the exact same tube from the exact same company. Mm-hmm. So you just have to test the heck out of them in the amps, and you beat them up, and if they survive your testing, then those are the good ones.
Hit them with a hammer real hard, mm-hmm. if they survive, they might work.
That's a really good one. Yep.
That's cool. I'm trying
That's
to.
what I'm having to do lately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't know. I'll knock on wood as they say it, but so far the amp that you sent me sounds great, man. Tubes sound great. So,
Yeah.
No problems.
We know years ago, I don't know if you recall, I don't know how long ago it was, but Marshall amps had 6L6s in them for a couple of years.
Yeah, 5881 power tube.
Yeah, or 5881s, and that's because EL34s got so bad in quality that Marshall couldn't use them. They couldn't use them for manufacturing.
Yeah, that was the end of, that was in the early 90s, I remember specifically. And all the German, Siemens branded tubes had dried up.
Oh, okay.
And, they were no more. You really couldn't get them anymore. And the only EL34 available that was new was the Sovtek EL34, whatever. It was the newest one. And that one, or there was a thin bottle Chinese EL34.
Mm-hmm.
And neither one was usable.
Yeah.
They were just garbage at the time.
It's not that they sounded bad; they would fail. They couldn't get out the door.
Yeah, and the Sovtek one was just in its infancy at that point in time. They finally that tube now basically appears as the EH EL34, which actually is a decent tube.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it's my favorite sounding, but it's seems to be reliable, which we'll see if I wind up using it. just because it's reliable.
Speaking of that, Dave, while I got you on here, if I wanted to get another set of tubes, so I would, just in case something goes with these, could I buy a set of matched tubes that would already go with that?
Yep. Of course.
All right, I want to prepare so I don't have to take it to another tech. So we'll
you know
talk.
How to bias though, it's not a.
Oh, I screwed up the last amp I tried to bias.
Yeah, but you know how to. You figured it out. You know how to do it.
I could do it.
It's even easier in that amp. I can tell you how.
Oh, okay. All right. Then we'll worry about it later. Let's see. We got a question for Bruce. Who makes the oversized 1x12 for the Mod 50 amps?
Mojotone.com. In fact, somebody recently, might be the same fella, contacted me about that, and he went directly to Mojo, and they're going to do one for him. So if this person that you're looking at right now is looking for one of those, he can actually just go to Mojo or mojotone.com and tell him he want the old Egnater oversized 112 cabinet, and they know which one it is, and they can make you one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Stan Adams, thanks for watching. I think Johnny Bean gave us a shout out on his show, so that's cool. Thanks, Johnny and Dave, for saying that and bringing people over to watch on our show. I appreciate that. Let's see. Someone Push 22 Fret says, "Hey Bruce, Mark, and Dave. Bruce, still running my M4 into my 69 Marshall Super Bass loop. So versatile. Thank you."
Yeah. Well, you're welcome.
And then
the M4, just in case somebody else, the M4 is the 4-channel modular rack mount preamp version of that.
Oh, okay. G-Man Music Production says, "Thanks, Bruce, for all your amps. I have the Mod 50 with many modules, Tweaker 15, and Rebel 20.
Wow. Well, thank you.
Super cool. Stan Adams says, "I would dig a Friedman down the road, but still use my block EVH for now and still love." Stan, you got to get a Friedman. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
All right. There's a complete difference between what I'm hearing and a block EVH.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We have to assume you haven't played the Friedman, so
yes.
Till you do, then you'll see.
Yes. Matthew Harrison says, "Just saw Pete's Dirty Shirley demo. It was killer as always." Yeah, I saw that too. Pete always does a great bit.
Of course.
Someone said that there was a Pete sighting. Did I miss him?
He walked right through, yes.
Oh, okay. I was too busy looking at the chat.
No, he doesn't live here.
But he's always there, though.
Yeah.
Let's see. Bruce, I really like the YouTube video of the Sweetwater SW45. Sounds fantastic. Any thoughts on releasing that again?
Probably not. Actually, Dave and I kind of worked on that together. It's probably quite similar to an existing Friedman model anyway.
Could be.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one, but no, probably not. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. I think I know the answer to this next question for Dave. Any chance of a Friedman 5-watt bedroom player, anything? You already have combos. Not 5 watts, but
probably not 5. You know what? I was messing around with some 5-watt stuff. It's just that the power sections just are never great in the little 5-watt guys, and it kind of like. I mean, you'd be better off buying one of the pedals and running it into your favorite little super clean little tiny Fender or something.
Yeah.
It's just this little 5-watt power sections don't have much to them, especially if they're single-ended or something. Just kind of. I mean, you can, but I don't know. We'll see. And it's also, what do you want to pay for it, too? That's the other problem. I mean, it's like a 5-watt amp. What do you expect to pay for it? And if you expect it to be really cheap, it would have to be made overseas or something. And
quite honestly,
which I'm not ruling out. I wouldn't rule out, but I mean, the master volumes work so well on the amps. I mean, you can play it really quietly. You can. Get yourself a little Pink Taco combo that's a 110 combo that's really tiny.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And just play it at whisper volumes, and it'll sound great.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between those different power levels, a 5-watt amp is a champ.
Yeah.
That's a Fender, 5-watt amp. And yeah, the power amps are not really, I would say that type of power amp isn't really a Dave Friedman sound. It's going to be lacking a lot of stuff. The 15 or 20 watt amp is not, you can turn it down. There's a knob on there called volume. So, you can still play it quiet without having minimal power. And 5 watts is still loud as heck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plug into a champ in your bedroom and it's loud as heck. In fact, plug a champ into a 412 and it sounds great. So, I personally don't see the advantage of a 5-watt versus a 10 or 15 watt one. It's not going to be a lot cheaper to make either. The components aren't that much cheaper. So I agree with Dave on that it's.
I agree. I mean, I don't have first of all, I had a champ also. I used to have a 50s champ, and that thing was loud as hell. I mean, unless it has a master volume on it, and then it's going to just sound like crap anyway. So,
Right.
Let's see. I'm going to run through the questions here and see if we have anything else. Someone said, I found a free PDF version of the Jack Dar book online. If anybody wants it, let me know.
Cool.
Well, they could probably look it up. Let's see. Scrolling. I'm scrolling.
Guys,
go ahead.
Anyone who asks in here, t-shirts are coming for Friedman. We've been trying to work on some new designs, and unfortunately, it's been going kind of slow. So, I'll make that happen very shortly.
Cool. I'd like to get a shirt. I want a shirt too. So, and Tone Talk shirts, we're going to be making more. I've been really busy with work. I have not had a chance to do it, but I will. Let's see. Someone said, is there a Dumble module in the Synergy future? I doubt that.
Well, actually, I'm working on it right now.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
Yeah.
What do I know? Okay, really?
Yeah. Yeah,
well, not an official brand.
No. Oh no,
Okay,
no, no,
there you
no,
go.
no.
There you go.
Howard Dumble is not involved. We're just gonna kind of, approximate it.
Do your version of it.
Yeah, but it'll be different than anything else we have because his basic concept is different than any of the other modules. It's not a Marshall, any of that. So, but it'll sound great. Will it sound like $100,000 Dumble amp? Probably not. But
is there really anything that sounds like $100,000 amp?
I don't know. I don't know if any amp sounds like $100,000 amp. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
But no, we are actually working on. It'll be a little while. I honestly, I just started it. I'm just drawing schematics now. So it takes a couple months to make that stuff happen. But.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting, different sound. I've got a Dumble clone here, built out of a Fender kind of cloney amp.
Yeah,
and it's different. It sounds, it's not going to be that classic Marshall tone that that some people like. It's definitely its own flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's definitely very mid-range bass kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. Very much so. Let's see. I don't know. I'm going to throw this out there. Someone said, ask about Ed Roman.
I know the name. I've never. I
never had any dealings with him.
I had no idea.
All right, good. Neither did I. I know the name. I've heard all the hoopla.
Yeah.
So, but and I know some people have had their issues with him over the years. I don't think he's still alive though.
No.
Yeah. Maybe Bruce and Dave have some interesting Ken Fisher stories or just thoughts about train wreck amps. I think they're great from what I've heard.
Trainwreck amps are fantastic. I don't have any Ken Fisher stories though because I've never met the man.
I've never met him either. I've heard a few of the amps and they sounded great, and just like another million great sounding amps, he had his little thing, or his little recipe, and beyond that, no, I've never met him, so I don't know. I read all the same stories as everybody else. I know he used vacuum cleaner cords. Those are,
and someone said that Cesar Diaz was Stevie Ray Vaughan's tech back in the 80s. Was that who you were talking to?
No. This was the road, like the guitar tech guy.
Ah, gotcha.
Cesar Diaz was the one that worked on his amps, which is where I'm not sure how that fit into maybe he had special amps he used in the studio, and those were the tweaked ones. But when it came to the live thing, I don't think it mattered which amps were in that pile because he would swap them out indiscriminately anyway.
Right.
So, whether it had a 100K grid resistor or a 47, I don't think it really made a whole lot of difference in the live setup.
Right. Okay. Chlorine Baconskin says, you guys know anything about Two Rock? I've been digging their TS1, but it's pricey. I know that they make good stuff. I've seen it and heard it. Looks good. That's what I know.
Yeah, I think they started or still are a sort of Dumble clone type of thing. I know they have some of their own models, but I think they're the ones that took that, copying the Dumble thing a little further than most of them. Beyond that, I don't know. Yeah, they sound great.
Okay. Stan Adams said, question about using a Variac with less than around 90 volts. Can I hurt anything?
No.
I've done it. I mean, don't turn it too low because your amp will eventually shut off.
Yeah.
Don't turn it up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, don't go beyond 120.
Yeah. Now, using a Variac, since you did mention that, doesn't magically work on every amp. It works on the classic Marshall kind of things, but any amp that has any kind of channel switching or, DC supplies, there's stuff inside the amps that if it's not just a pure tube amp like a stock Marshall amp, a lot of those circuits don't work when you turn them down too low. Voltage regulators stop working, and your channel switching won't work, or your reverb won't work, or any number of things like that. So you can't just plug any old amp into a Variac.
You'll know.
Yeah, you'll turn it down and it'll stop working, and you go
stop working, then turn it up a little.
Yeah.
Turn it up till it starts working again.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just stop there.
If you turn it down and it starts humming, then turn it back up a little.
Right.
Tom Platt says, Dave, what's the amp behind you with the white nameplate and panel?
The one that's out of the box or the one that's under it?
I think the one that's under it, the black.
The one that's under it is a small box that I made for myself that has a white panel with black chicken head knobs and a white logo. And then the one on top is the first prototype of the BE50 Deluxe.
Nice.
But
so
that isn't white now, although it could be ordered that way. It comes in like a standard gold style. You can almost order anything any way you want it. We can do it. It's just a question of what that might cost, or custom options. We can do it very easily because all the wood shop and all our panels and everything are made in-house. So we have complete control over it and can change something at a whim. So it's really makes it quite convenient to do that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
See, like awesome. Marc's white half stack back there behind him that he just got. There you go.
I'm doing my best fan of white. Yeah, and it's actually not a straight white. Also, it's kind of a like a cream off-white color.
Like a sort of slight ivory, sort of.
Yeah, it's very classy looking. It's not like this really like bright white. So I love this freaking thing. Got to tell you. Let's see. Oh, by the way, Dave, when is the BE50 Deluxe coming out?
I've been testing a bunch of them, so I imagine Sweetwater will have them in their shop very shortly. I know they already ordered more, so I'm not sure what that means. Maybe that means that they're already sold some of them, but they haven't got them yet, though. So
okay,
they're sometime next week. They'll probably leave our shop.
That's awesome. Can't wait to see it.
A couple weeks, I think, or something. Call Sweetwater and ask for it, and ask them.
And then, yeah, exactly. Ask Sweetwater.
Ask Sweetwater. Them. They'll have a better idea than me.
And Dave, is there a plan? I think you mentioned it on the last show about updating the BE100 with the newer features.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone wants it, there'll probably be a BE100 Deluxe. So
super cool. And
what makes these Deluxe? I didn't even. What is that?
Well, we did a 50. Well, it all started with Sweetwater wanted a custom amp, and then it wound up becoming an actual amp that we're going to be selling worldwide. Essentially, so the channels, there's just more features. It has for the dirty channels, each channel has its own gain and master. How it worked before was just a kind of a boost on the dirty channel.
Oh, okay.
And now it's got its own gain and master. That channel is a little updated. It's slightly a different circuit. The clean channel is slightly a different circuit. The clean channel is like the clean channel out of our Bucks and Betty amp. Then it's got a variable negative feedback knob, a thump knob, which is a resonance. Some of the other features, fat switch, saturation switch.
Okay, loop. I just didn't know what it was. So.
Yeah, loop, half power switch.
C45.
No C45.
Oh, you got rid of that. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Good stuff. Well, I can tell you just from having some of the features on this amp, it's amazing. So we have Benjamin Murphy had a question. We're close to wrapping up with the questions, guys, just so you know. Curious, what is it about a bad capacitor that can cause that weird ghost note ring modular sound? Not sure.
Well,
It's bad.
it's bad. What you're hearing is what they call ripple in the power supply, which is sort of an odd, what would you call it, Dave? An intermodulation sort of distortion. When a capacitor fails like that, it's mixing in 60 cycles, 120 cycles, whatever, along with your guitar. So every note you play is as if you've got a couple other unrelated notes going along with it.
Yeah, you got a really cool octopedal.
Yeah, it's cool, but you can't turn it off. But that is one of the characteristics of a bad filter capacitor, and it typically would hum, but well, maybe not.
Yeah, I've seen it not.
Yeah, I think it's the Rebel 20 or whatever. I've seen a couple main filter cap failures, and it doesn't hum.
Yeah.
But you play it or look at it on a scope, and it's like, holy smokes, what is that? Sounds really cool, but it's not a guitar amp anymore. So.
Let's see. What was the Egnater amp? Matthew Harrison is asking, what was the Egnater amp with the ISP disseminator built in that was the highest gain amp you ever released?
That would be the Armageddon. And actually, it's a decimator, is the ISP. It's like I don't know if you guys know what the ISP decimator is. It's a pedal. It's sort of like the next generation of Hush. ISP was one of the brothers that used to own Rocktron, and they split apart. And the engineer, Buck, started his company and called it ISP. And this is his next improved generation of the Hush pedal. And it's actually built into the amp. If you open the amp up, there's a circuit board in there that we would actually buy from ISP and install in the amp. So it's a noise reduction thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Someone asked, G-Man Music Productions, is the Dumble module going to be similar to the Egnater COD module?
Not, well, tone-wise, it's actually going to be a Dumble module. At least, every Dumble is different, like Dave was saying, but we sort of have to choose the generic one that sort of falls in the middle. It'll be a mid-rangey, smooth, singing, Dumble-like tone. Whether it'll sound like the COD, probably not exactly, but it'll be similarly voiced. Is that a good answer?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That works. Francisco has a question. If you use a Variac, won't you have issues with cathode stripping due to lower filament temperature?
Not that I've ever seen.
Cathode stripping is a phenomenon that happens more in RF tubes, in RF applications, RF being radio frequency, than guitar amp stuff. And you almost, if I recall, you've got to have a tube run continuously for like hundreds of thousands of hours before it really becomes an issue. It's just one of those things that it's a technical thing, and it doesn't really, to answer the question, no, that's not really a concern. Your tubes are going to fail long before the cathodes become stripped or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, no, go ahead and use the Variac without concern for that.
Mm-hmm.
If there are other concerns, that's a different story. But no, cathode stripping is not really a thing to worry about.
Okay. Scott Bartle asked, Bruce, what happened to the Detroit series you had demoed at NAMM a few years back?
Well, we come up with ideas and we make prototypes, and then we make that gross error of showing them to people like at a show, and then we get sidetracked or something takes priority and we never finish it. The Detroit amps were one of those that they were really cool, and we made the prototypes. We did want to make them here. That was part of the thing. I mean, you're going to call it a Detroit amp. When I say here, I mean in the U.S. And after reevaluating, there was no way we could make them here and not have them be terribly expensive. So it kind of defeated. We couldn't make them in China and call them Detroit. That would have been tacky. So
I think
we did one of those things that we put out, and we shouldn't have shown it because we weren't ready. So I apologize for showing you something really cool that you can't have. I have them here, the prototypes, but I'm the only one. But they were pretty cool, just totally loaded with features, little small cool stuff.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. You'll come out with something else that'll be awesome.
Yeah, you get so many things, you have so many ideas all the time, and some of them become real and some don't. The mistake is to show stuff that isn't going to come out. Well, we were good intentioned, but
it happens to the best.
Yeah.
It happens to the best. Hey, speaking of something that I wanted to talk about, two things. One is it was supposed to arrive today. I bought the Friedman Buxom Boost from Keith Bear's Guitar Guru Network. It was supposed to arrive today, and it didn't. So, Dave, I'll let you know what I think of that puppy when I get it. And then I got this thing just the other day. I got this as a gift. Thought if you guys want to check this out, it's called the Roadie Guitar Tuner. You ever hear of this? Anybody?
Yep.
Super cool. It comes with, you download the app, which is free on your phone. And basically, it will tune your guitar for you. To any set of tunings, alternate tunings, standard tuning. It's all built in on the app, so you don't have to remember alternate tunings and everything like that. And then basically you just pluck the string. You just have to hit something on the app which says, calibrate or tune. And it was very cool. I tuned up my acoustic to an open G the other night, just real fast, 5 minutes it took, a couple minutes. And I thought it was pretty cool, I don't want it built in on a guitar like the Gibson Les Pauls had them built in on the guitar and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think this is a cool little feature just to have like in your bag,
It's kind of amazing, actually.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Wow.
Yeah. It was $99, so hopefully I won't lose it because that's my fear. This is what it looks like, and it just runs off the app on your phone. And then it also has an adapter, which I don't know what I do with it. Here it is. That lets you plug in your guitar cord, your 1/4 inch, if you're on stage, and you can make it silent. Actually, it goes right into your device, so that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And let's see what else. Any other questions, Dave? Did you saw?
No, I think we got it covered.
Cool.
Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah.
All right. Well, Bruce, thank you to having you on the show. Can you tell people how to reach you again, and reach out to you and check out your amp building classes and everything else like that?
Well, we have the amp building class website, which is just my website, but it's called ampbuildingclass.com. And you can email me, begnater@aol.com. And those are the best ways to find me. I do have Facebook. There's a Bruce Egnater Facebook page. There's a Bruce Egnater amp building Facebook page. So I'm easy to find. I'm out there.
You're out there. You have an Instagram page, I think, with no pictures.
Yeah, I didn't know I had that. I keep getting notices that I have followers, and I've never done anything with Instagram. So yeah, we'll put some pictures on there.
Yeah, I'm just joking. I'm just messing with you. I tagged you.
But it is true.
Yeah, because I tagged you on something, and I went to look at the profile. I was like, oh, there's no pictures. Oh well.
Yeah.
So you'll get to it eventually. But But no, thank you so much for joining us. I've known about your stuff for a really long time, and when Dave has told the story several times about how he worked with you and has learned a lot from you. So I think having you on was awesome. And Dave, any final closing thoughts?
Go and take Bruce's class.
Yeah. Okay.
There's my closing thought. I think you should
All
do
right.
it, guys, because you'll have fun. It'll be a good time.
Awesome.
Cool.
Very cool. All right,
And
guys.
Mark, go take the class.
I promise
Thanks,
you
Dave.
I will. It's going to happen. Every time I'm hitting the thumbs up, and I really would love to do it, because not only just from building an amp and getting one, but I need some help on my soldering skills. Some serious help.
Well, this will do that. And you learn a bunch of stuff too, so it's cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I get to hang out with you. How bad can
there
it be?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
super cool. All right, well, guys, have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We still have like 55 people watching. Thank you very much. Hit the like button on the video, please, and please subscribe to our channel. It's tone-talk.com, www.tone-talk.com. Check it out, and we appreciate you viewing. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. Take care, guys.
All right.
All right. See you guys. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.